I am Kendra Dixon. I'm from Aubrey, Texas, and I'm living more than a fairy tale.
Well, how so?
Well, I grew up around horses and have seen a lot of different things happen over my life. I actually was a person who grew up in church, but I was one of those kids that fell through the cracks. So faith didn't really resonate with me. You know, I really didn't get it. I didn't understand when people said they would pray for you. Like, I'd heard prayers, but they were more formal, you know, thee and thou and Father Almighty. And they kind of scared me a little bit. I was super bored in church, so I usually just scribbled on the bulletin. And in my early 20s, I was at a super low point in life, like severely depressed, insecure, didn't know which direction my life was going. And I ended up at a little group called Ropes and Bibles in Nacogdoches, Texas, at the rodeo arena. And that's where a group of men from the community, I grew up in East Texas, so a group of men in Nacogdoches started cooking free hot dogs and hamburgers, and they would help us kids with our horses in the rodeo arena one night a week. And they didn't shove the Bible down my throat, but in conversation, like how we talk, occasionally they would reference Jesus, or you know, how that might apply to my barrel racing. And that really caught my attention, and I was interested. I wanted to know more. So I started kind of asking questions just in my mind, you know, privately, like, God, if you're real, prove it, because apparently I'm dumb as a duck and I don't get it, right? And it just seemed like, boom. I know it probably was a matter of months or years, but really pretty quickly God did reveal himself, and he showed up in my life, and amazing things started to happen, and I started to see things that I had thought were too good to be true come to fruition in my life. So things like wanting to make it to the National Finals Rodeo, which I've not done yet, but I've been super close. But even the thought of really being able to compete on the pro rodeo level seemed like such a far-fetched dream to me that it would never come true. It would never be possible. I met my husband in '96. We got married pretty quick. '97, moved up here to North Texas, horse country, USA, and settled in Aubrey, which is a little horse community about 30 miles north of Dallas. When our daughter was 4 years old, my husband encouraged me to get my WPRA permit. And I was super scared, you know, like, who am I, you know, just little mom, you know, training horses. Of course, I grew up on a ranch in East Texas. My dad ranched 1,500 acres. We ran cattle. We had really good ranch geldings. And my dad loved training thoroughbred racehorses. He loved it, I didn't. But I was a daddy's girl, and I rode 1,000,000 miles next to my dad. So if he was going to train those silly racehorses, I was in it with him. And you know, moving to North Texas was a very humbling experience for me. I chased my tail for a lot of years in the sport of rodeo. I went from being a youth competitor that was super successful. When I moved to North Texas, I got my tail kicked. These barrel racers here are very serious. They've got the money to play, they've got the horsepower, and they're out for blood. So it was a very humbling few years when I first got married and moved to North Texas and did not have the horsepower to compete. Went through a lot of soul searching, almost quit. I met one woman who really challenged me as far as everything I'd ever been spoon-fed about traditional barrel racing. And she encouraged me to stop listening to people, start listening to my horses. And that really impacted me in such a way that it changed the way I trained my horses every day, and ultimately it changed me as a competitor. And I started to see those things click. So when Chad said, go for it, get your WPRA permit, I was still a little scared, I was a little shaky, but I had been training and selling horses at that point as my primary source of income. And I would pick a prospect that I knew would fit my style, since I kind of had then found my signature style of training and I could duplicate it from horse to horse. Well, I was selling horses like crazy. And I would take them to a rodeo, get some credentials, make some videos, market that horse, move to the next horse. And throughout these years, my faith was increasing. I would see God supply more and more often, where I knew that I knew it was not coincidence. Crazy things would happen that you just couldn't make up. One of which being in my horse selling years, okay, 04 to 07, at some point I started remembering the song Strawberry Roan by Marty Robbins. My dad and I used to sing that all the time. We had a blast singing Strawberry Roan. And I can remember there were just several thoughts that pinged through my brain, you know, as I was riding or thinking about horses, what I'm going to buy, what's going to be next in the barn. And I remember thinking, yeah, that's cool. You know, I think a roan horse is really pretty. Someday I'm going to have a red roan. And just like that, boom, Dover appeared. I got a phone call from a good friend named Bill Richardson. He's no longer with us, but at the time he was probably the #1 horse agent in the United States. And he said, Kendra, I got a horse that's going to fit you. Go pick him up. I said, okay, Bill, I'll be there. Nobody was there when I got there. I said, which one? He said, he's the red roan in such and such lot. He was standing at a sale barn. Bill owned the sale in Whitesboro, Texas. So I took my trailer. I show up and there's 2 red roans in the stall, in the lot, chewing on a bale of hay. And I called Bill and I said, which one? And he said, the little one. I said, okay. I threw a saddle on him by myself. Of course, I don't know what I was thinking. But I liked this horse's handle. I liked his move. I liked his feel. I knew by that point in my life what was going to work for me, and as far as how I wanted to handle and respond to my hands. So I bring that little red roan horse home. I liked him well enough, even though he didn't fit my specific criteria to sell. That's why I bought him. He was outside the criteria a little bit because he was 9 years old at the time. That's late for a prospect. He was a reject cutter. They were using him as a turnback horse. He's broke. Not a whole lot of finesse to him, but savvy, broke, aware of his hindquarters, soft in the face. And when I first started over on the pattern, I thought, oh my gosh, I have made such a horrible mistake. He was so lazy. I remember just having to just kick him and flog him just to get him to pick up a lope and go across the arena to the next barrel. And I thought he was bored. I thought he was dull. I thought, you're nothing but a daggone kid horse. Like, I am not going to hit a lick with you. We need to get out, right? And it was really bizarre. I remember him surprising me when it happened. So I got him, he made really fast. The horse actually was paying attention. And he seemed to gather the information quickly. He knew, like, okay, I'm supposed to stop and right here. This is how you want me to handle my body. I got it. Let's go, lady. Well, when he decided to run, it was like reaching over to the wall and turning on a light switch. It was crazy. When he took off and ran, I'd never felt a horse run like that, ever. And I didn't have a fence around the arena, didn't have a cover on the arena. It was just a plowed up piece of ground in the front pasture. And he ran so hard and so fast past the first barrel, it scared me. And he immediately corrected himself. It's like he went past that first barrel and something registered in his mind and he thought, I was supposed to turn that, wasn't I? And he almost fell down to turn and go the other direction. And I was off like that to the second barrel in an open field. Yes, like, what's happening right now? Where did this horse come from? He went from like deadhead kid horse to now he might be running away with me. Like, that was very scary to me. And he gets through the pattern pretty much on his own, runs back to the beginning. And I remember there was a little bitty, like a milkweed or something about this tall. And it was growing right at the edge of the dirt where the grass began. And when he got back to that point and he saw that little weed, he completely overreacted. And he shimmied and unseated me, and I nearly came off and fell on my head. And that was just another moment where I realized this horse is extremely athletic and extremely quick on his feet and reactive. And again, it just made my heart go to my throat. And I was like, what just happened? But I knew to sit down and hang on. Dover's first debut on the pro rodeo circuit was in Sherman, Texas. And I drew up in slack one morning. It was a Saturday morning. And a little bitty pen, kind of a trap pen. It was really small and really narrow. I don't remember what number I was. He hadn't been to very many barrel races, hadn't had a lot of exhibitions, so this was going to be brand new for us. But he was a cool horse, and I knew I could trust him. So I sent him in there, and it felt like we just bounced off all 3 walls. And it felt discombobulated, but it also felt really fast. And I came out, and I was a little bit dazzled, and my driver with me met me at the back because we were going back to the trailer, and he was super pumped. He was like, you're placing. And I was like, what? He goes, you're placing. I was like, you gotta be kidding me. That's his first rodeo. Like, that can't be right. But we were placing. So I was like, holy crap. Like, I guess the little scamp can run. And then we went from Sherman to Palestine. So Palestine was his second pro rodeo on day 1, same day. And we drew the perf in Palestine, and it was a big arena, very sandy. Great crowd. I remember being there thinking, wow, like I'm back in East Texas. I could smell the honeysuckle, beautiful night. I was just having a blast. I didn't really realize, I maybe had a clue that something was significant about that night because I still have a visual in my mind of what it felt like warming that horse up and what that field next to us looked like, what it smelled like, what the sky looked like, and I remember smelling that honeysuckle. So it's my turn to run. Dover just takes out of that alley like a house on fire. And kind of like the same repeat of when I first started him on the pattern here at the house, he went right past that first barrel. And my mind at that time wanted to overreact. It wanted to think, uh-oh, like this is bad, this is wrong, I should do something. But my muscle memory knew to stay quiet. Just sit in the middle and giving the space and the time to think. And sure enough, just like day 1 of his, really finding his motor and learning how to run at home, Dover went past that first barrel and he kind of glanced back at it like, we were supposed to turn that, weren't we? Yes, please. So he just buries up in the sand, like snaps back really hard, and we're off to the second barrel. And the crowd went nuts. And I knew we must be doing something right. So we get through the second barrel, much like the first. It felt loose, but I knew it was fast because I was having a really hard time staying on him. Third barrel, rinse and repeat. I mean, he was in and out so fast, and then he was just such a powerhouse running back home. I'd never felt a horse with that kind of motor. A lot of horses they'll quit you, especially in a big arena. They'll start to kind of fade down, and you really have to pedal them to get back across the timer. Not Dover. He was completely motivated. It was like he knew what we were doing. And the crowd went nuts, and he ended up winning the whole rodeo. And that was just amazing to me. I couldn't believe that happened. Like, I wanted to pinch myself. Is this real? I had won some money on the pro circuit earlier that year on a horse named Talladega. First pro money I ever won, we won the whole rodeo. That was in Canton, Texas. And again, I grew up dreaming, having those gold buckle and those pro rodeo dreams, but not really ever thinking it was going to happen for me. I was the underdog. I grew up in Wells, Texas, population below 800. I think there were 19 kids in my graduating class. I was one of 19 in my graduating class.
Yeah, watch the turn. Go, sweetie. Look at it. Boogity, boogity! Look at that horse.
What were the emotions running through your heart? What were the thoughts going through your head in that moment?
Well, where I grew up, they don't necessarily teach you to dream big. I come from small town USA. So at that moment, like, that was such an incredible day to me. That was like over the top, beyond what I had even asked for. And I was living it. I just placed it, my first pro rodeo on this horse who'd only seen the pattern a matter of months. And then he wins the second pro rodeo on the same day, wins the perf on Saturday night. Like, is this real or am I dreaming? If I'm dreaming, I don't want to wake up. Like, this is just so cool. And it was fun, and I remember calling home and telling my dad, and he was so proud. And that little strawberry roan just came out of nowhere. Like, complete underdog story. He's not bred to be a champion. He didn't have the start to be a champion. He was really overlooked.
And then you guys went on and placed in the next 6, right?
Yeah, and then he does it again and again and again and again. So Dover actually ended up winning or placing the first 6 pro rodeos we entered. Just boom, 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 back to back. And we were on a hot streak. And then I got in my own head. And I started questioning myself. I started listening to traditional barrel racing techniques that say, don't burn them up, don't blow them out, you're supposed to take all this time, the process takes a long time. And I started becoming insecure. I started to doubt, and that caused me to hit barrels, or the win streak would have continued. He was rocking and clocking right there. I was the one who held him back.
I guess, do you carry any amount of guilt? Because my next question was going to be to kind of walk you through your struggles up into 2012. He had his health issues. You kind of had your issues as well. Did you carry a degree of guilt? Did you feel like it was your fault, or were you just kind of like, this is...
I was dumb and didn't know any better. I didn't know to carry any guilt at the time. I looked for an excuse. Like, I had learned by placing too much pressure on myself early on in my career that I learned to take that pressure off. So I was just saying, like, it's just barrel racing, it's gonna happen. You're gonna hit a barrel. It's okay, I'm here to have fun, I'm living the life of my dreams, it's okay. I didn't really take full accountability until years later, when I had to look at that sobering fact that I was the one. My lack of faith, my lack of confidence, my moment of doubt caused our win streak to pause.
Which was the start of a Job season for you, in a lot of ways.
Sort of. So I was able to recover mentally, right? And say, you know what? This is my moment. Hit it. Take advantage of it. Just ride like I know to ride. My new style, my signature style, let's get it. So then we bounced back and started winning again. And he went on to win. We won at Ardmore, Oklahoma. We go to Ada, Oklahoma, and he actually won that pro rodeo by half a second, which is crazy. Yeah, it's like 10 miles, not just a mile, It was so much fun, and he really started to gain recognition in the sport. And people were starting to ask about that little red roan horse. What's Kendra riding? That little red roan horse. And they were kind of referring to me that first year as potentially the wild card going into the NFR. And it was all happening so fast, I was like, is that even possible? Like, I've never been at this level before, so I don't even know.
Race tonight. Now around that final turn, I want you to help her home. Outstanding run, 15-60.
Check in, please. 50 pistol hit. Last call, 50 pistol hit.
How about a 15-3, 95. Nice run.
And then the next year, things started off great. I started having problems with Dover's feet. And he actually ended up developing white line disease. And that was a battle that took us through the next 2 years of trying to keep it at bay, keep it at bay. We would remove a piece of hoof, put some epoxy in there, patch him up, get him back on the road. He would continue to win in spite of having partially artificial hooves. We went through years of trying different shoeing modifications. Dover's a big old stocky built horse. He's Hancock and Azure T. I used to give him crap and telling him he's a little bit country and a little bit rock and roll. So he had that cowboy bloodline, but he also had a little bit of racehorse in him, which is like me too, right? So I grew up on the ranch ponies, and my dad loved those thoroughbred racehorses. I love the good, broke, solid ranch horses, and I spent my time on the backside of the track. So I certainly learned from both. As we kind of got through that, I remember there was one time, Dover was born, naturally his conformation is really blocky and stocky, and so he carried a lot of muscle on a little bitty frame. His legs were always small, his bones were thin, and he was born with a club foot. So we always had problems shoeing that front left foot because it was more narrow than the others, and it gave him fits. And then the other front foot gave him fits, and we went into what actually began many years of just keeping the horse sound. And I learned that just when you think you have it, every possible fire put out, another one's going to come along with a horse at that level. Because Dover was a horse that had no rate. He had no regard for his own safety. He had all regard for my safety. And he wanted to win. It's like he understood our mission from day one. And he was out to prove a point. And so there was one point in Dover's career early on, probably the second or third year of our pro rodeo career, where we had to remove half of his hoof because of white line disease. And he had to stay contained in a stall, completely sanitary, like you could hardly let that hoof see the light of day. My husband's a vet, so every few days he would have to take the bandage off, re-bandage it, make sure that absolutely zero bacteria got in there, and basically regrow an entire hoof. And just when we were almost done, the white line popped up again and we had to cut it out again. It took 15 months to get the horse back. And I remember my first run back was in Amarillo, Texas. And I hit a barrel, but we would have won it. So he bounced back. I mean, no exhibitions, no practice, no tuning. All I had to do was get him legged up and let's start hauling. But that gave me so much faith because I knew, like, he's incredible. Like, this is a remarkable horse. I'm living a dream. Let's enter the next rodeo and go. And so we bounced back and we started working our way into the top 15. And I learned through those years that it's one thing to get in the top 15 in the world. It's another thing to stay in the top 15 in the world.
Albany, Texas. Now, I'll be honest with you, I have not seen this particular horse that she's riding this year, but boy, we've been hearing some good stories about this pony. I know one thing, these girls spend a lot of time in the practice arena to fine-tune the event, learn what the horse can do, and help him do it. Yes. See, that's what I was hearing about, that he's extremely quick. How fast he can run, but let's check him out. This next girl that comes through the gate set an arena record last night with 15:18. And if you were here, you may recall we talked about this good horse she rides. Kendra Dixon, Aubrey, Texas. Now, can she repeat that? I don't know. We'll find out. I know one thing, that horse can run a hole in the wind. I like it, don't you? Get ready. Let's do it, Kendra. It's the drums. 15:09. So much for the records. She sets it one night, breaks it the next. Man.
Wow. She is #1 by a mile.
You've got to be able to maintain that status and be in the top 15 by the end of the season. I ended up qualifying 5 times for the Texas Circuit Finals Rodeo on Dover. And he outran every horse that went to the finals for about 9 years in a row.
But you never made it.
Unfortunately, we never got our chance. There were many other setbacks in our way. It just seemed like every year when I would get in the top 15 and my family and I would celebrate, like this is it. This is our year. We're going to make it to Vegas. The rug would be pulled out from under us again and again and again and again for all of these just random, bizarre reasons. If it wasn't white line disease, it was me being diagnosed with Lyme disease and going through a horrible treatment process and just shredded my body. I went from being able to ride 10 to 12 horses a day to, if I was able to get in the saddle on 1 horse a week, we thought that was an accomplishment. But I was a shell. Like mentally and physically, my body just wasted away. And it took me a year to recover from that. So that was one setback. At one point I was diagnosed with melanoma, freaked out. You know, we thought the first biopsy, probably not that big a deal. The first surgery, you know, we got it. Then I get a call from my surgeon saying, actually, we're going to go in and do this again. And that was very scary to my husband and I. And I ended up going down to Dallas and having you had to drink the chalk flavored liquid and go through the big machine. And I remember being in a room full of a bunch of old people in wheelchairs, thinking to myself, why am I here? I'm young and I'm healthy. And it occurred to me that the next step in that natural process was going to be chemo. And I called Chad on the way home and I said, I think that might be where we're headed here. And we were getting ready for surgery. Of course we were scared, but I'm a woman of faith, so I'm trying to hold it together. And I remember pre-surgery, I had a little checkup with my surgeon, and the nurse was explaining how they were going to remove all the lymph nodes from this arm. So I had to be careful if I worked outside, and she advised that I wear a glove on that hand, you know, if you're doing anything like gardening. And I look at her like, lady, I don't garden. I ride horses, I rodeo. And my husband, Chad, he's a vet, and so anytime, you know, there's medical questions or concern, I look to him, right, because he understands what they're talking about. And so he asked her, he was sitting in the room with me, and he goes, you mean until she recovers, right? And at that moment, like, time stood still, and she said, no, forever. You have to understand, like, she's more susceptible to infection. You can't get cut. And that just, like, rocked me. Like, am I going to be the Michael Jackson of rodeo? I'm willing to, but for real, like, I'm going to have to wear a glove on this hand forever. It's hot. I live in Texas. But then it, like, you know, I kind of got my head on straight. If you have to take the whole freaking arm off, let's get it done. Like, I don't want this. I have life to live. I have dreams to chase. I got a gold buckle to go get, right, with my name on it. And so I come back home, and I kick it in high gear. I'm in supreme sales mode. I'm running red tag sales. I'm selling horses, just clearance, because I didn't want Chad to have the burden of having all these horses to feed while I was recovering. And I remember I was standing out in the arena, selling a horse, had a sweet little family out there, and my phone kept buzzing, and I was trying to ignore it. But it was a different number, and it just kept dialing back. And I said, if you don't mind, I'll take this call. And it was my surgeon. And he was talking, he was using a bunch of high dollar words, like $50 words that I couldn't understand. And I'm like, okay, so, you know, what are you saying? And I saw Chad's truck pull in. It was in the afternoon. He went in the house, I was out in the arena. And he said something about Spitz Nevis. And multiple surgeons across the country have been debating your case, and at this time we're going to label it a Spitz Nevis and put you on a high alert watch, but at this time we don't feel it's prudent to proceed with surgery. And I said, what? Come again? I said, let me, did I understand you? No surgery? He goes, no surgery. I was like, yes! And I basically just leave the family there and take off running. And I said, I'll be back. And I run in the kitchen and I said, Chad, I don't have to go to surgery. And it was just epic. It was an amazing moment. Just incredible. Like, just incredible. And you know what? Part of that story that I forgot to tell, I had known there was a little red bump on my shoulder for months and months and months. But I was rodeoing. I was trying to get to the NFR, and I kept blowing it off. It looked like it was the size of like a baby ladybug, and it was pink. And so I thought, that can't be anything. But every now and then it would kind of tingle. And after one of our major setbacks, I thought, well, I finally have time to go get that checked out. And I made an appointment with the dermatologist. She looked at it and she's like, oh, it's probably just a bug bite. It's probably just a scar. I'll go ahead and remove it just to be on the safe side. And the next Monday I got a phone call, and it was from a girl at the dermatologist's office, Nicole, and she said, Dr. Harrington would like to see you on Monday or tomorrow. Can you come tomorrow at 8 a.m.? And I thought, well, yeah. And she said, it's okay to bring a family member with you. And I thought, like my gut just went like bloop at that moment, like everything fell out. And it's like a pause in my life thinking, the only reason I would need a family member with me is if it's bad news. So I prepared Chad, honey, you might want to go with me tomorrow. Dr. Harrington comes in and she's just stone cold serious. And she handed me a little brown paper bag with a bunch of literature on melanoma. And I thought, are you kidding me? Like, that's my life in that little brown bag? And so we started going through that process, and just having that rattle us to our core and sober us to what is really important in life. Like you have life today. You're not guaranteed life tomorrow. And it really changed the way we looked at ourselves, the way we looked at our family, the way we were living, why I was rodeoing, why I was trying to get to the finals so hard. And it made me so much more appreciative of the life that I have, instead of being disheartened about what I didn't have. So it was a very sobering moment in time. And just to see how God took that moment of fear and said, you know what, actually it's okay. It looks like melanoma, but it doesn't actually act like melanoma, so not yet. It's a precursor. So I'm now on a high alert watch. I go every 3 to 6 months, check in with Dr. Harrington. She's awesome. It's been really nice to have a doctor who cares. So every time they remove something, there's a moment of like, here we go again. But I would rather have it off of me. So I do feel like that's one of my mission statements, to make people more aware of sunscreen. See, when I was a kid, it was cool to be tan. And we would have contests on like who could be the darkest. And I'm competitive, so I was going to win it. So I spent so many years in tanning beds and laying in the backyard, you know, because I prided myself on my tan. But that came back and bit me in the butt. So today I'm all about the sunscreen. I am so much more careful. And, you know, so we got through that. We got through the melanoma scare. There was one point in our career when we were sitting 7th in the world standings. And once again, my family and I thought, this is our year. We're going to make it. We're sitting good early in the season. I feel great. Dover feels great. Let's go. And I go to Guymon, Oklahoma. Made a great run. That pin is outrageous. It's huge. And felt good. I mean, I knew we'd clocked well, but I couldn't hear my time. And I was walking back to the trailer and I heard someone say, good run. And then another girl said, hey, good run. And then somebody else said, nice going, Kendra. And I thought, well, thanks. You know, who's winning it? And she said, you are.
Hey, Kendra.
I was like, well, dang, Dover. Like, good job, champ. Like, I had a little spring in my step. And so I was going to run again. So I was getting ready for round 2. And I made Dover's little pin right there by the trailer. Got everything set up. You know, my mom was with me, and we kind of settled in for the afternoon. And at 3 o'clock, I noticed Dover was acting a little unusual. And so he would kind of scratch at the ground with his hoof, and then he would roll his lip up. And I'd never seen him do that before. Mostly stud horses do that, or you know, horses that are, if they smell something funny, or maybe a colt, but not an aged gelding. And I'd watch him a few more minutes, and he'd kind of scratch at the ground, roll his lip up, and I thought, well, this is just odd behavior. He might be colicking. So I called my husband, Chad. What do? Chad's usually super chill. He's such a laid-back guy. He's kind of like, don't overreact, give him some Banamine and watch him. But he didn't do it that time. He said, there's no harm in getting him checked out. So I was like, okay, let's go, Mom. Load up, let's go. And I'm taking down the panels really quick. Fred Whitfield walks by. He said, you need help? I said, actually, Fred, I do. My horse may be colicking. And Fred grabs all of those panels and shoves them onto my trailer, chains them tight, and tells me to go. And I get to the first vet, which was a little country like dog vet. Not good. I honestly can't believe that. I remember thinking, what on earth am I doing here? Like, he doesn't even have the right tube to tube a horse, right? It looked like this old piece of black hose that you fix your tractor with. And he put it down up my horse's nose. And I thought, dear God, like he could have killed him right there. But he didn't. And so I called my friend. I said, hey, I think my horse is colicking. We just gave him some Banamine. We tried to tube him, but I don't feel good about it. Where's the closest horse vet? He said, you need to go 90 miles down the road. So I hook it to the first horse clinic. And great vet, got there early evening. She said, yeah, your horse is definitely colicking, but I think you caught it in time. So I was like, whew, huge sigh of relief. We would check on him for a few hours. Then by midnight, he was pawing the ground again. And so those symptoms were coming back. On and off for a few hours. The vet wakes me up at 3 o'clock in the morning and says, I could be wrong, but in the event that this horse might need surgery, I would hate for you to be stuck up here in the Texas Panhandle. You're 7 hours away from the closest unit. Wow, what a scramble. So once again, Mom, load up, let's go. And at that time, we didn't have fancy phones with GPS. I had a Guymon on the dashboard, and Guymon told me the fastest route. And I took it, because that was the shortest route. It wasn't the fastest route. We ended up on some pig trail of a road, washboard, going like 25 miles an hour for miles and miles. Stressed out. By the time I hit 40, the sun was coming up. And I had that little motorhome pegged out. I was a bus driver by the end of that trip. That was my first and only trip ever in that motorhome, because I don't know if you've ever driven one, but they kind of float and they don't go real fast. But I had her pegged out. And when I pulled into Edmond, Oklahoma, to the vet hospital, had a complete staff waiting on me. Dover was shaking like a leaf all over. I mean, he looked like death, still standing. And they whisked him away and had him in the surgery suite within 4 minutes. And again, I just couldn't believe that was happening. Really? Like, we're sitting 7th in the world. Again? Come on. And I called Chad, and I was just so distraught. I couldn't believe what I just lived through. I couldn't believe I'd driven 7 hours in the middle of the night, having to stop and sedate my horse every 2 hours with a flashlight. My mom was older at the time. She wasn't able to even get out of the motorhome and come hold him for me. So I would just pull over at a gas station and kind of like hold a light in my mouth and try to stick him in the vein and sedate him. So Chad drove up to Oklahoma, drove us home. I left over there. He did make it through surgery. I felt horribly guilty when I saw him leave the surgery suite. This is where I'm going to get emotional, because he was in so much pain, and like he was just emaciated within a matter of hours. And I thought, God, I just put him through that. We saved him, but this is going to be a horrible recovery. For what? So did a lot of soul searching. I remember thinking, like, why is this happening? I thought I was a good person. I thought I was doing the right things. I'm living for the Lord. I even have a ministry. It's called Rodeo for a reason. And I'm riding for, skin cancer awareness and kids with neuroblastoma and childhood cancer awareness and juvenile diabetes awareness, and trying to be a woman of strong faith. And I just didn't understand why I kept getting my tail kicked. like spiritually and literally. So I came home. Chad was very understanding, so supportive. And we had been kind of searching for a church, but I remember looking online that morning because I wasn't sleeping very much, and I saw a church that caught my eye through a Google search, and I thought, I don't know, maybe this guy has a message that'll help get me out of this funk. So I said, Chad, do you care if we go to this church today? Of course, Chad was going to say yes to anything I wanted, right? So he was being the good husband. So we load up our daughter and we head to church. And something was so surreal about that moment. I remember, it was like that moment was just frozen in time. I remember us turning left into that parking lot. I remember what the tires sounded like on the pavement. I remember at that moment talking to God saying, I really hope you're here today because I'm devastated. I feel so bruised. And I thought, what a weird word. Like, I don't usually use that word to describe my emotions. The service was awesome. It made me feel so good. I mean, it was like that preacher on stage could have just started every line with my name. Like, Kendra, I want to tell you that everything's going to be okay. And I was like, wow. And at the end of the service, he said, now, I don't know, this might apply to somebody, but I'm just curious. And I want you to stand up if this is you. Does anybody here feel bruised? And I was like, it's me! Actually, it's me! I've just been through hell and back, and I'm here, and you just made my day. And so it was a very uplifting moment. That was hard. Like, I still had to come home and face the fact that my dreams of the NFR weren't going to happen that year. Were they ever? Dover had to have 5 months off. He got through the surgery fine. He recovered great. He went right back to winning those rodeos like he never missed a lick. We go to Lincoln, Nebraska. This was 2011. It was the WPRA Finals, and that horse laid down some smoking runs and won the title. So it was incredible. Again, I was back in fairy tale mode, like this is too good to be true, and I'm living it.
Kendra Dixon, Aubrey, Texas, now clear to run. Savannah Reeves would be on deck but has not checked in. That's an office turnout. So Holly Condon be ready. Oh, Ronnie's on a mission. He got across that pin mighty good, y'all. It's all about how he turns the third barrel and gets out of here. 16:04 leading at 16:29, 1629 for Kendra Dixon. We both of those had barrels down. I like the roan. 32.84 coming in. Kendra Dixon, bottom of the ground, looking to take advantage of the cruise. They're already there. Map laid out. Had to realign twice at barrel number 3. Kind of 2-pointed at 16:26, 16. Wow.
And again, we thought this is our year. All these random weird things would happen. Like, he would be lame. We'd have to patch him together, keep going. And we just bounced back for so many years. The next year, WPRA Finals rolled around. It was still in Lincoln at the time. We got outran by Tammy Fisher. She ended up making the National Finals that year. Multiple National Finals qualifier. Former world champion barrel racer. She ended up winning it on Traffic Guy by a sliver. But we were a very close second, and we were first runner-up for the title, second year. So Dover just had tremendous success. He taught me about success. He got me to Texas Circuit Finals 5 times. Our last time running, again, things were going great. Yes, we'd had some issues keeping him sound, but Dr. High at Riata and Equine had him feeling great. He was sound, he was happy. I was sound, healthy, happy. Let's go make the most of it. Turned my first barrel. I felt like a little question mark in his step. And Dover's the kind of horse where if he knew we went past a barrel or maybe there was a flaw somewhere, then that seemed to just be like, yeah, that just made him want to come back even harder. So he kind of ticked his head like, dang it. and he took off so fast to the second barrel, and we're literally flying across the pen, and something happened, and he tripped. And it was a trip that he couldn't recover from. And we were going so fast at that time that it basically just rolled him end over end. And once again, there go my NFR dreams. We were both extremely fortunate to walk away from that accident.
Ladies and gentlemen, the livestock is a big factor for these contestants and how they make their living.
It was an accident that most people get care flighted out of there. Yeah, and I walked away. So the saddle, one of my prototypes for the bullseye saddle that they'd actually made wrong, saved my life, because that saddle seat, the back of it was high enough where it rolled across the back of my legs when I hit the ground and I was under Dover, that it lifted the bulk of his weight off of my internal organs. And that's it. So back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. Are we going to make it? Or are we not going to make it? It was just a very awesome, but also very frustrating series of years. And I finally got to the point where it was costing so much money to maintain him, and he was getting older, it did not make sense. And I started to question myself. I'm getting older. I've been chasing this gold buckle for so many years. Have I made the right decisions for my family and I? I don't know. But I financially could not afford to keep going. I was thoroughly confused and disheartened, and I thought I was absolutely crazy for getting up every day and getting back out there. I don't know why I did that. Other than the fact that I'm my daddy's daughter, I'm a little Eddie Rosenberger, that's my daddy, and he taught me to have grit and stick to it. I rode after that accident at Texas Circuit Finals, even though I knew I had no chance of winning, and I hurt. But I took a sale horse because I saw an opportunity to monetize. I had to make a living. If I could make a video, display that horse, and somehow get a paycheck from all of that, I had to stay and do it, and it hurt a lot. I remember my first run back from that fall was going to be at the National Western Stock Show and Rodeo in Denver. And again, trying to pump myself up like, I can do this, I'm a woman of faith, I'm gonna be fine. But I didn't make any practice runs, not even at home. I got my clearance that Dover was fine from the vet, from Dr. High. I had my prayer warriors and my family praying for me, and I went to Denver, and I was still sore. I didn't crack my ribs, but they were still bruised. And the Claire Davis event had just happened. There just had been the shooting in Littleton, Colorado. And my platform has always been rodeo for a reason. And I had planned on wearing gold at that rodeo to raise awareness for childhood cancer. I found out about Claire Davis, so I wanted to bring awareness to that as well. So I wrote a little note to the rodeo announcer, and I said, I'm actually in black and gold tonight in honor of Claire Davis as well, and her school. So I'm in the back warming up on Dover, kind of trying to talk myself off the ledge because I had no proof that I was going to be fine. And he was eerily calm. It's like he understood that I was still shaking like a leaf on the inside, and he was my security blanket. He was keeping me from like going over the edge. And when they called my name and the announcer told the crowd who I was and what I was there for, you know, Claire Davis, I have never heard a stadium so loud, ever. I mean, the crowd just went, and it just took off, and I was like, that's why I'm here. It doesn't matter. Nothing else matters. Like, that was the fuel I needed for my faith to turn him loose and let him go. And we made a great run, and it was awesome. And my friends told me that it was actually a standing ovation. And I thought, that is just so cool. There was another time in Denver. Dover always loved Denver. We always won a pile of money in Denver, but we never won the title. We came so close. There was one year where we pulled down the last barrel, left $7,000 laying in the dirt, and Jane Melby won it. And she ended up going to the National Finals that year. So I remember being so upset. Before that run, I'd been praying like, God, who am I here for this time? What's my reason to rodeo? And a very dear friend had come to mind, and her family, and I knew she was struggling. She was having a hard time. And I got so overwhelmed with emotion in the warm-up pen, I got teary-eyed, which I don't do very often. I just don't do that. And I thought, man, I got to get it together because my peers are going to think I'm a basket case, and they're going to eat my lunch out there, like, you know, wipe the tears off your face. And we pulled down that barrel, and I was so upset. Lord, how could that happen? Like, I'm here to help this family, right? I was going to give part of my money to them, and we just left $7,000 in the dirt. Like, that just crushed me. And later on, because I sent her my tithe, which wasn't as much as I had hoped it would be, later on I didn't understand that she received that check in the mail on the very week that her last payment was due to go to a special camp with her and her family that always meant a lot to them. And it was like within dollars of what she needed to pay that week. And that was my confirmation. I was like, okay, that's actually cool. Like, hindsight, that's awesome, because it was confirmation for her. That's the number she needed to know that God was looking out for her. Another time that happened, I was trying to get to the finals. I had some weird looking shoe on Dover. That was their solution for him at the time. And I mean, it looked like some kind of space boot. It didn't even look like, it was just some abnormal apparatus attached to the end of his foot. And we were sliding all over the pen, like leaving money at every barrel. It was horrible. And I remember walking back through the barn, through those stalls, thinking, I'm confused. Like, I thought this was the right thing to do. I thought I was here for a reason, for a purpose. Like, I wanted to win this rodeo because I have another family and I know they need help. And I was going to give my tithe to them because I felt like that's what God told me to do. And I was by myself, walking back, embarrassed, mad, sad, frustrated, walking through those stalls. And God hit me like a ton of bricks. And I heard the voice say, Kendra, it is not about the money. It's about the message. Just carry my message. I don't need your money. And I thought, wow. I heard that so clear that I couldn't argue with it. And it was kind of a relief. Like, I lightened up on myself and my horse. And I thought, well, I didn't win it. You know, personally I would like to, but it's going to be okay. And you know, it just went on. I got so close so many times that I really don't know why I kept coming back, but I did. At some point around 2012, I'd been out on a rodeo run. I came home exhausted, laid down on the couch in the middle of the day. It was warm. I know the weather was warm. I woke up from the couch and I remember having this thought run through my head. You know how we do. We have conversations in our head all the time. At that time in my life, I didn't recognize it was the voice of God. Like, I hadn't always heard audible things, you know. So I woke up from that nap and I felt like I heard either myself, maybe the voice of God say, I'm going to send you another Dover. And I kind of chuckled. I thought, that'd be great. What color is he? Clear as a bell, I hear he's gray. what? All right, it's on. Like, I love that. My first real rodeo horse was gray. I love gray horses. My dad's best ranch gelding was gray. Like, there's got to be significance there, right? So I watched every gray horse that crossed my path, that came in this barn for years and years and years, thinking, this must be the one God was talking about, right? And it never came to fruition. And I got so frustrated to the point I actually had a gray horse in my possession named Grace. Super fast horse, wants to be a champion, loves to run, loves to turn barrels, just doesn't fit me. Like, just complete opposite end of the spectrum for my signature style and how I ride and how I train. I didn't train that horse. I didn't start her on the barrel pattern. So I got to the point, I'll actually, read it to you at some point in 2020. I'd started Stall High, okay, that's the biggest thing I'd ever signed my name to, and had started a digital marketing company the year before. Super busy, just not able to ride as many horses because I was so absorbed with learning, a new life skill, basically, a new trade. I never thought that at my stage in life, or at that stage in life, someone who was formally educated as a speech pathologist and then started like training and selling horses and rodeoing as her main source of income for so many years, I never thought I would be coding websites and saddled up to that laptop every day, all day, every day. But when I latched on, I latched on. And as the business grew, I needed cash flow. And the gray horse that I owned at the time, actually still own her, she's standing back there, really stressed me out. I knew she was valuable, but I felt so much pressure on me to fulfill that word, that prophetic word. Like it's up to me to make it with her. But every time I rode her, I didn't feel right. And I ended up saddling up Dover to make an ad for a bit. I hadn't ridden him in over a year. Threw the saddle on him, stepped up there, and immediately it just felt great. And I remember thinking to myself, like, just feels like home. And again, I don't usually use that word to describe a horse or think it. And little Shelby walks by me and she looks up at me and she said, well, how does it feel to be back on Dover? And I said, well, it's funny you ask, because I actually just had a conversation with myself. I just told myself it feels like home. Had a great time riding him. Didn't go through the barrels. I basically just walked him around and used him as a demo for a video. But that prompted me to go back to prayer and say, Lord, I'm frustrated. I'm feeling really pressured financially. I have this gray horse that I know is valuable. I personally can't ride her. I either didn't hear you correctly about that gray horse, or I'm wimping out on you early. But I want out. I can't handle this pressure anymore, and I have too much going on. So I felt like he gave me peace about that. And not too many days after, in prayer, I love to journal. I started journaling around 2000, maybe a little sooner. I haven't always been real consistent with it, but in the past several years, I am uber consistent about documenting in my prayer journal. And I like to say that I reserve the right to be wrong. I could be wrong, okay? But in the wild, odd chance that I'm right, I want to have proof. I want to have written validation to prove to the world that God is real. And if He cares about me, that means He cares about you too, because the Bible says He is no respecter of persons. And amen simply means if He's done it once, He'll do it again. So, as I was finishing up my prayer journal on October 29th, 2020, 5:29 a.m., I start writing down what I believe I hear God saying to me in my spirit. And He said, you've been catching glimpses of a red roan in your future. Small hints, just like you did before Dover appeared. Your daddy always loved singing Strawberry Roan with you, and I thought it would put a little crinkle in his crow's feet. Just kidding. He doesn't have those anymore. But I thought you could use it live on camera someday, wink, wink, if I send you another one. Because the gray horse prophecy took longer than you thought, Really, it was express ship to you, Kendra. Most people can't spell prophecy, as Chad Gillihan said yesterday, much less know what it is, or ever see one fulfilled in their lifetime. Look at yours. So many beautiful prophecies coming to pass, blooming like a field of gorgeous, fragrant flowers right in front of your healthy eyes. About this red roan, I'll be more specific this time so you'll recognize her sooner. See, what I've learned about prophecy is that we only get a part. Someone else gets a part. Someone else gets a part. I believe God distributes His small clues, bits and pieces of His Word to a dynamic group of people so that we must come together in fellowship, so that we must use our teamwork to make His dream work. So that I thought was really cool. Talked about this red roan. As you document my voice and interactions now as I reveal them to you and you receive them, people who read these words in years to come will be astounded. Their pulses will race, palms will sweat, hearts will long for what you have, Kendra, which is why I'm having you record these conversations. So the non-believers will believe, and the timid of faith, the bashful believers will fully embrace me. Dover was so proud you chose him for the camera yesterday, KD. It made his heart swell up with pride. It made him feel important, valued, and significant again. When you climbed in the bullseye, you thought, feels like home. And as you bridled up and talked to him, how many rodeos did y'all repeat that step? Dover, always willing to take the bit. Get your bit together. Take the blinders off and pull your head out of your past. Because mistakes we've made in the past don't have to stifle our future. All right, so getting ready for the National Finals 2020. My marketing team and I were starting to blend my years of being on RFD television, the media skills and connections that I made there, blended with my new digital marketing team. So I had an idea to create a series, a digital series, that were going to be a series of sponsored questions to ask NFR qualifiers during the NFR. And I was telling, every brand I could think of in the Western industry, hey, we're going to do this cool series. We're going to interview all of these athletes during the NFR. And your brand's going to be attached, and it's going to be this massive brand awareness campaign. Do you want a spot? And Pat Taylor at Paul Taylor Saddle Company was the first person to immediately respond. He said, absolutely, put me down. And then other people liked the idea, but their budget was gone, so I was starting to get a little bit stressed because I had this great idea, but I needed the capital to make it happen. So I started thinking, well, who in my contact list, which of my friends need help with marketing, but they might have something to barter? And I reached out to a bunch of people. I was texting my little funnel, letting them know what I was planning to do, and sent a text to a guy named Nick Trevea. Nick Trevea trains and sells horses out of Stephenville, Texas, and he has a really good eye for a horse, and he knows what I like in horses. I've been getting prospects from Nick for years now, but I didn't hear back from Nick. He didn't respond. I had reached out to him late October or early November maybe, told him about my marketing idea, and I was flying out to California. It was my first trip. I was headed out to an EP conference with Keith Ferrante, and a speaker named Pedro Adeo was going to be there. And I've learned a lot from Pedro and his wife Suzette over the past year and a half, since late 2019, all of 2020. Pedro Adeo was very influential in my life, in the development of my business, and the brand Stall High. He's has been extremely influential in helping me get to the point to where I launched Stall High as an online platform, a community for horse people. And I was headed out to California. I just landed at the airport, and I get a text from Nick Trevea. And he said, that sounds interesting. He said, tell me more. And I got him on the phone. I told him what I planned to go film during the NFR, which athletes I wanted to talk to, and how he was going to benefit with his brand awareness. And he said, well, I'd probably trade you one of the 2-year-olds. And I thought, well, cool. I remembered he had sent me some information on a couple of 2-year-olds he had for sale at the time. And that was back in October. And so this was November 11th that we were talking. And I kid you not, the next words out of Nick's mouth were, the red roan will fit you the best. And here he is. Introducing Pedro. This little horse obviously is a red roan, which just completely floored me. When Nick said the red roan will fit you best, and I had just heard that from God on October 29th. So from October 29th to November 11th, God delivered. It rocked me to my core, like knocked the spurs right off my boots. Was I really living that moment again? Like another fairy tale moment? Like obviously there's a lot of illumination on that, and I'm thinking, holy smokes, or holy bit, like here's a bullseye. It's happening. This is so cool. And just super pumped. I had a great weekend at that conference. I got to see my friends, Pedro and Suzette Adeo, our friend Natalie, Wendell McGowan, Keith Ferrante, his wife. I mean, so many friends and supporters from the prophetic community, Chad Gillihan, Ed Zinner. It was just awesome. And I got to share the story like, hey guys, God gave me this word about this red roan horse, and I just traded. Like, I just made a deal. We bartered a deal, and I'm getting a red roan horse as payment. How cool is that? So I've waited all of this time. It's now April 2021, and I have not even ridden this horse yet, and I have wanted to ride him since the day he arrived at my ranch. But I recognize the value in this story. I pray that what I'm hearing is correct. I reserve the right to be wrong. I could be wrong. He could buck me off today. I don't know. I trust Nick that he chose a prospect for me that is super broke. I trust he's going to have a really cool foundation level of training. He's never seen a barrel before, and he's going to be super fresh because he's been sitting here since November without even a saddle on him. And if you know horses, you know what that means. So today could be real interesting. We could, you know, have our own version of Cheyenne Frontier Days, who knows? But I'm glad you're here to share it with me. I knew that this story was important to tell, and that's why I waited so long until I had someone who could come help me share this story and tell it through the lens of the camera, because I understand that doubt is so much easier to believe. It's easier to doubt than it is to have faith. And I've encountered so many skeptics in my lifetime, and I've been one of those skeptics that I understood if we didn't capture this moment, if I didn't document this story on paper and through the lens, that too many people would doubt it. And so that's why we're here today, and that's why you're here today. So I pray that God of the universe reaches through this device and touches your heart in such a way that causes you to be inspired, that causes you to ask Him for your own divine encounters, and that your own fairy tale begin. I'm super excited today's here. I have wanted to start telling this horse's story from day one since he got here. And I've had to wait just on the right timing and until we had someone here with a camera and the skills to film. I was writing in my journal this morning, and the significance of red and white together stood out to me, and I wrote it down in my journal. I asked my prayer team at Rodeo for a reason to be praying over today. I'm going to take this off. It's pretty big for him. And I reached out to Steve Friskup. Steve Friskup is inarguably like the most well-known, most awesome auctioneer of our time. He has sold thousands upon thousands of horses in his career. Really cool guy and very strong man of faith. And I'm very fortunate to have him as a mentor. I haven't talked to Steve since National Finals, so December. And sent him a quick text. I said, hey, we're starting to tell the story of that little red roan horse today. I appreciate the prayer. And he said, I have a word for you. Call me when you have a minute. So I was like, all right, cool. This is going to be good. And he talked about red and white together. And he had just gotten a call moments earlier that a guy had had a very clear vision, like a dream or a vision about the colors red and white, and had just called Steve this morning about red and white. I think a lot of people are spooked by the word prophecy. I was. Either they don't know what it is, or they have a negative experience or a thought attached to it, or someone somewhere in their past had a negative experience with prophecy. I think inspire is a great word, and encourage is a great word, which is what I have learned prophecy means, and that's what I see happening in my life. So I just put them together, and I use the word encourage. So Steve not only encouraged this guy who had just had a vision this morning, he then got to turn around within minutes and encourage me. And he said, Kendra, the significance of red and white together is red represents the blood of Christ. Without the shed blood of Jesus Christ, there's no forgiveness. The purity, the white being total forgiveness. He said a lot of people, even in the horse industry, we hear it, we see it. Yeah. People drag around hurts from their past, negative experiences, and it can deter them. It can cause them to run off in the ditch. It can cause them not to reach their next destination successfully. And for horses, there's a parallel with that in the horse business. Some people will try to mask a flaw in a horse because of the past mistakes that have been made in the training, or to that horse's own decision and own responsibility. Something happened to flaw that animal. And instead of masking over it and kind of sticking a Band-Aid on it with a quick training fix, there are some trainers out there, the professional trainers of the world, know how to really get inside a horse's mind and reframe their mind so that they actually take those bad events away and they start over with a correct foundation. And those are long-standing results, and really prepare that horse for a career, a longevity of career success. So not trying to whitewash over our mistakes, not trying to gloss them, not trying to hide them or ignore them, but actually going to the cross, going to the name Jesus Christ, who literally shed his blood for us to offer his salvation. That's like a really good professional horse trainer. Just takes the problems out mentally as if they never happened. My hope today is not to get bucked off. This horse is young. I trust Nick Trevea. I know he sent me a horse with a really awesome foundation. He's going to have a real groovy feel. He's going to have a real crisp stop, and he's going to be light in the face. But he's going to be fresh. So anything can happen with a young horse, especially one that hasn't been ridden consistently in several months. And so my main objective today is not to get bucked off, but also to have fun and see how much this horse knows. I want to know to what level his foundation feels like to me, and how much natural talent he may be able to show me just at a walk and a stop and a quick turnaround. Long term, obviously, I'd love to give this prophecy a chance. Did I hear correctly? If so, I believe this story deserves to be told. And I'm thrilled that I have your interest and that you're here to share it with us. So my ultimate goal would be to take this horse from a prospect to the pro rodeo level. Is he the next Dover? Will he get us back in the top 15? Will we make it to the NFR on this horse? I don't know. I don't have all the answers. God gives us small bits of information in such a way that we can digest them so that we can handle them. I believe if he told us everything at one time, we're not capable to comprehend that. It would probably freak us out, and we would just sit home thinking, there's no way that's possible. So I know just enough to keep me encouraged, to keep me completely fascinated with this horse and wanting to know what the future holds for the two of us. I'm excited. I'm very excited because I've waited so long for this horse. There's so much emotion tied up in him. There's so much history that goes back with my red roan Dover that I feel like a little kid at Christmas, like an important Christmas. I know there's a really big gift under the tree and I'm about to unwrap it. So that's what today is all about. I'm excited to see what this horse feels like. I understand that he's young and that this is going to be a long-term project. I'm not in a hurry. And quite frankly, that's a good thing because I'm pretty overwhelmed as it is. Building Stall High, getting that baby off the ground, building my team, my digital marketing team, all of the other commitments I have in life right now take priority. I physically don't have a lot of time to come out and train hours a day with horses. That wouldn't happen right now, even if I wholeheartedly wanted it to. So I love and I'm fascinated with the whole timing of events here. It's pretty interesting to watch this unfold, to be living this fairy tale moment, and just to be seeing God highlight moments and opportunities like this little red roan horse. My friend Wendell McGowan said, when God illuminates something like that, when he highlights a moment, an event, a person, these dots that we're trying to connect. Wendell said God does that. He highlights things in different events and different moments of our lives to keep us encouraged, to keep us going so we don't quit. And like I mentioned before, for whatever reason, I'm hardwired to rodeo. Something in me does not want to quit. I still want to get back out there. I still dream of qualifying for the National Finals Rodeo. Coming from the back 40 of Wells, Texas to the top 15 again. That's my dream. Thanks for being here and thanks for sharing it with me. I know, Dover. It's going to be really dusty in here, unfortunately.
All good. Just tell me if I get in a bad spot for you.
I'm going to be in the middle. You're probably going to be safer in the middle too.
Okay.
Let me shut this door. It doesn't have to latch, but we'll at least shut it.
Pedro!
Yeah, what's up?
Let's go, man.
It's my day. I'm here, yo. We know. Today's your day, buddy. All right, so far, I like that he's calm. I'm going to go ahead and tighten him up pretty good. If he's got any wrinkles in his back, we're about to find out. All right, you're in a tricky spot. There you go. When you turn them loose, they can get kind of froggy. So let's see what he does. Yeah, there it goes. Yeah, woohoo, woohoo. Yeah, he's fresh. This could be interesting, guys. He has not felt a saddle on his back or a tight girt in several months. Good boy. Switch up. Good boy. I like that. He's athletic. He seemed to be able to stick his hocks in the ground and come around quick. Pretty easy. I mean, not like up. Not a whole lot of buck to him. He's a sweet little horse, so I don't think he has a mean or a malicious bone in his body. He's playful, so I'm not like super alarmed by him being a little froggy today. If he were a horse that were real reserved and super watchy, a buck like that would make me real cautious right now. I'd be pretty scared to climb on him. Good boy. What do you think, Pedro? Hi, kid. You ready to go back to work? You ready to learn something new about barrels? I'm going to start him with a little bit of love. He's a baby, so he's going to have a tender mouth. Whoa, kid. You going to keep going? Think about it. Yep, I'm gonna knock some more dust off. Blow out the smoke. Because he's young, won't put a lot of pressure or expectation on him this year. I've never really been one to get into futurities. There's a lot of money in it. But I've just never pursued the futurity trait. I've never pursued the futurity world very consistently. Trying to provoke him to buck, see if he's got any left in him. Good boy. So, yes, I'm going to have to be consistent with him, but I'm going to give this horse a lot of breaks throughout the next year as well. So we'll let him digest the information, think about it. I'll get him started on the barrel pattern. Then I'll turn him out, let him grow up a little bit more. And every time I introduce him, I'm very straightforward on the barrel pattern. I don't like teaching a lot of things that they don't necessarily need to know to make a successful rodeo run. All right, Pedro, are you ready? The moment of truth. Hello, kid. Good job. And if the horse hadn't come from my friend Nick Trevea, I'd be a lot more cautious right now. But I've gotten enough horses over the years from Nick that I trust he knows my style. He knows what's going to fit me as far as the feel that I want in a horse's foundation. And I just trust him. I trust him to send what he says he will. So I know the horse is not going to be a bronc. He's not going to be super waspy. And he doesn't have that personality. If anything, he's just playful. So the moment of truth has arrived. Here we go. Okay, so I'm going to probably step on him here, and if you'll go on that side, there you go. Got a little bit of freedom. Let me make sure my stirrups are where they need to be. Someone else was in these stirrups yesterday. Oh, kid.
Like a kid on Christmas.
Yeah. Christmas. Christmas is here. 15, 16. All right, Pedro Adeo, or Pedro Dixon. Wiggle my jeans up. Are you ready? I'm actually a lot more calm than I usually am getting on a new horse. Good boy. Good job. He said good boy. It's good. He's not a cat on a hot tin roof, so that's a good thing. Good boy. All right, so right away I can tell I wouldn't say he's apprehensive, but I can tell he's thinking about me. And I love that right away. I absolutely love horses that are mindful of me and willing and ready to listen. I grew up on horses that literally every day that we went to work, that horse was an extension of our body. And it wasn't always, I mean, I love what I did, but it wasn't a leisure ride. It wasn't a sporting event for us. That's how we paid the bills. That's how we made our living. And if I let a cow go by because my horse wasn't responsive, there went our paycheck. There went the feed bill. There went the electric bill. So it's always been stressed upon me to have a horse that was safe and quick to respond and very light touch. So right away, I'm super in love with this horse's walk. I mean, I love what I feel. He's calm. He's not looking around. He hasn't questioned anything. He's just riding around like, I mean, he kind of feels like maybe a 14-year-old rope horse, and we've just run a few steers on him. Super chill. Let me kick it up and see what he does. Easy. Ah, good boy. Love him. Thanks, Nick. I love it. I loved it. I could feel that foundation in him. First time he took off, he was idling a little bit hot. Whoa, I love that. I love a horse that's super grabby in the stop. Got a big, crisp stop, and I think he's gonna have one because I just felt a little sliver, like a little hint of a stop when he felt my body and he asked, do you want me to stop right now? So he started off at a trot a little bit fast, and then when I started him right here, I could see him kind of lower his head a little bit, and that tells me he's just got a fantastic level of foundation training under him. Good boy. All right, let's see what kind of whoa we have on Pedro. Whoa is my favorite word in the horse vocabulary. Ooh. My heart's so happy. That's it. That is exactly, precisely what I look for in a prospect. Like, this makes my heart like bubble like champagne right now, like crazy happy. I just love it. I love that he's alert, but he's chill at the same time. I feel like I could as easily be on a 14-year-old gelding. I love his stride, and most of all, I love how he can just shut it down to a stop, and he listened more to my body than he did my hands. So I think he is extremely mature for his age, and it just makes me giddy. Super happy right now. This is gonna be fun, guys. It's gonna be a lot of fun, Pedro. You're cool. I'm gonna step him around, kind of see if he can counter arc, see what a indirect rein feels like on him. I usually do that in my flat work every day because I want to teach him about the front shoulder moving over. It lets me know how much leg I can put on him. Good boy. There we go. Good job. So I want this left front foot to come over the right. There we go. Good boy. Good boy. Good boy. He's allowing me to put some calf pressure on my left. Excellent. Excellent. These are the things that I look for. And ordinarily, I mean, I would have to run the roads for months trying to find something to fit me. But that's why I'm very blessed with the people that I do business with, like Nick Trevea, that I can trust. They know me. They know my riding style. Nick knows me well enough to know the feel that I'm fishing for, what I need to make a successful barrel horse. So I'm pumped. You never know at the beginning stage if a horse is going to make it to the pro level, but that's my desire for all of them. I love that right there. Crazy love that. Sophisticated little horse. That's my hope for all of them. I mean, Dover taught me that. He was a reject cutter turnback horse at 9 years old and came out of nowhere to just light the rodeo world up. So I never discount them. I never judge a horse on pedigree. My dad taught me that it's the pedigree that makes horses popular, and always to look past the paper. So I do have papers on this little horse, but quite frankly, I don't remember how he's bred. I don't care. I care about his story, and I care about how he feels, how he moves. Good boy. I am so happy right now. I love what I feel. I'm going to set him down to the stop. Ooh. Oops. Kind of bobbled on that one. That's okay. Let's try it again. He is a kid. Still a baby. I love how he listens to my weight transition. When I sit down on the saddle, he sits down on the ground. I drop my hips, he drops his hocks. Ooh. Nice. Attaboy. Smooth, very smooth. I love him. And I'm not just saying that because the camera's rolling or I'm trying to embellish the moment or get everybody's hopes up. I've gotten my hopes up a lot and then had them like crashed and devastated. So I'm very reserved about that. I'm very hesitant to do that. But I just have too many signs around this horse to ignore them, and that's why I wanted to share the story. So it's gonna be fun, guys. Pedro, you're pretty awesome, dude. Glad you're here. Yeah. cool little dude. I trust him enough just to step off, not have to hold the rein. That's all I need to see today. Like, that was a great first ride. I don't have to grill him and tune on him and ride him for an hour. I mean, that's enough for him to be introduced to my hands, my hips, my left leg, my right leg. I think we're off to a fantastic start, and I couldn't have asked for it to go any better. You're cool. Yeah.